This is the iPad Possibilities Podcast, live from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Live from Cincinnati, it's Ryan.
And this is episode number 12, Apps of Anticipation. And we're down to 2 weeks and counting for the iPad. And it's getting pretty excited. I'm getting more excited each day that we get closer and closer. I realize it's March 21st, and it's getting even closer to April. And April's the month I get my iPad. And
well, for me, it's I look at it as, I ordered Friday the 12th, so a week down, 2 weeks to go for me because I just got the Wi-Fi one. But what a great title, Tim. Apps of Anticipation. Definitely looking forward to getting that iPad and trying out some cool apps, even some cool apps that I found this week that we'll talk about soon. But
awesome.
Holy cow, it's getting close. It's coming down to the wire.
Yeah, it sure is. Another thing I wanted to just briefly bring up is I started doing a weekly thoughts episode, which they're just short 10 minutes episodes every week. And yesterday or Friday, depending on how you get the apps, I talked about using a Mac Mini with an iPad, and just following that up, I did end up getting pretty much a brand new Mac Mini. It's about 6 months old, that had been upgraded to 4 gigabytes of RAM and a faster Western Digital hard drive and all that. And I got a great price on it, and I'm pretty happy that I'm going to be selling my MacBook Pro finally and replacing it with that Mac Mini, which I'm still working on getting fully up and running. So this might be the last time I'll be on my MacBook Pro for the show.
Why on earth would you trade in a MacBook Pro for a Mac Mini?
Just because of how I use MacBook Pro. MacBook Pro, it sits on my desk all day. It is the original MacBook Pro, so it's getting a little old, and it'd be good to sell it before it loses all its value.
Oh, okay, it's an older machine. All right.
So it's about 4 years old, and the Mac Mini runs faster, has more ports, it can output the 2 displays, it's more flexible. I can stick it in my closet and just run it from a server and use the iPad to control it and things like that, the form factor mainly.
Okay, well, yeah, you got a sad MacBook Pro when a Mini's faster than.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm going to be pretty excited to see how I could interact the iPad with the Mac Mini once that comes out, and I'll be testing out all of the VNC apps because that's going to be something I'm going to be very interested in because I'll now have a Mac Mini as my main computer that I use. So, well, I'll talk about more of that in future shows. But if you want to be a part of this show, if you are a Skype user, just Skype into iPad Possibilities, and we'll have you guys on to talk about the apps that you are anticipating, and also leave us a voicemail message at 209-542-iPad. We're trying to get feedback on what you guys are going to be doing with your iPad once you get it. What are your use cases? Are you going to be just using it in your house? Are you going to be taking it with you as your laptop replacement now? So just send that feedback into that voicemail line. So let's just get right into it. This week we're going to be talking about apps of anticipation, the apps that we're most excited about using on the iPad. Ryan, what are your top 5 apps that you're going to be loading up on the iPad when you get it?
Well, I'll tell you, this week I just found a new application, and I'm trying to think how did I hear about it. Oh, I may have heard it through App Sloppy podcast. I think they reviewed Air Video.
Oh, I've heard about this. I saw it when I was rummaging through Mac Rumors through their app. They had a forum where they were discussing what apps they want on the iPad, just so I could add extra apps I haven't thought of, and that was on there. And I started looking at this, and I haven't played around with it, so perhaps you could let me know how it's.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's amazing. I listened to it, and they do have a free version you can download to kind of test it out. The server side of it is free. So let me explain how it works. It's $2.99 for the full version. I went ahead and bought it because it's so amazing, and I wanted to support these guys. Basically, you download this application, and it's an iPhone application for displaying streaming videos. Okay? Well, where do they stream from? Well, they stream from either a Mac or PC, wherever you want. It's kind of like Slingbox for $2.99. Okay, now it won't forward your TV shows although there may be a way to do it. But basically, you go to their website, inmethod.com, InMethod, download their free Mac or Windows Server software, okay? And it can
Okay.
run on, I run it on my laptop, run it on my Mac, and run it on a server. It is Java-based, so you will need the Java runtime installed. Okay, you launch this up, you point it to a directory of videos, and then on your iPad or your iPhone, you launch this application. It shows you a list of the videos that are in that directory, and then you just hit play. Now, there's a couple things it can do. One, it can convert these videos on the fly to H.264 format, or you can have them pre-converted. Okay, but I'll tell you what, it supports so many daggone video formats, Tim. It'll play AVI, MOV, M4V, FLV. I haven't found one yet, and I haven't had to convert any of them. I just say convert it on the fly. And over Wi-Fi, I haven't tested it over 3G yet, but over Wi-Fi, it's seamless, and the picture quality is amazing. It just blows me away. So of course, I downloaded this thing and I got it set up on a machine that I always have running here at the house, and I just loaded it up a directory with a lot of my favorite videos, not even having to care about converting them like you do for the iPhone, right? Especially if you want them on your iPhone. Just throw them in there, just randomly throw them in there, and then I can, before bed or whatever, just pop up this application, air video, and pick one and start watching it. It's just blows me away. And when the iPad comes, what better way of watching these videos?
Exactly. Do you know, does it go down folders? Are you able to have different folders with videos in them?
Good question. I did not set up a directory. I just threw them all in there. I was
Right.
so excited. So I haven't gotten to all the nitty gritty. I just couldn't believe that for $2.99 I could get something like this working. And of course, the first thing I thought of was, I have my iPhone. It's $2.99. I'll go ahead and buy it. But it is no waste of money because I'm obviously buying this for when I get my iPad. So
Yeah, exactly.
I'll have to do that. I'll have to check that out. See if it'll do if I create subfolders, or if it'll let me navigate to them, and how it does over 3G. I mean, with my current setup, I have a no IP address set up through noip.com, so I can get to my home server from anywhere. I could open up a port specifically for this application and see how it does streaming my video from home to work and over 3G. So
That's incredible.
Yeah, that would be my number one application right now that I'm really looking forward to. A couple of the others are going to be games. So let me hear what your number one would be.
Well, my number one is going to be Evernote, designed for the iPad. They're doing an iPad version, and I rely on Evernote for pretty much everything. It's the external brain is what everyone calls it. And I store my Evernote library is up to almost 4 gigabytes now of pure data. I store ebooks in there. I store all sorts of things. And the reason I'm most excited about the iPad Evernote version is the speed of the device. Right now, loading up PDFs through Evernote on my iPhone 3G, it's very slow to load the PDFs, and the screen size is not really large enough. And also, it's going to be incredible because on the laptop version of Evernote, you don't get location-based notes, right? You get those on the iPhone. But if I use my iPad as more of a laptop use case where I'm taking more notes on the iPad than I do the iPhone, I'll have the 3G version, so I'll have location for every single note I take on it. And it's my most used app on the iPhone, and it will be that on the iPad, I think, as well.
Well, and if they're coming out with one specifically for the iPad, just think of the screen optimization they'll probably do with it.
Yeah, exactly. And these guys were behind the Newton. They were like the guys that got the text recognition, and they have a big tablet history, and they're very excited about it. And I'm excited to see what they'll do with it. I've been able to beta test some of their iPhone apps development apps, as they've advanced through the versions, and I'll be excited to see if I can do that for the iPad as well.
Okay, very cool. Number two for me, unless um, in 3.2 that the OS 3.2 for the iPad, unless Apple makes any significant changes to Safari, I'm looking forward to Perfect Browser,
Mm-hmm.
using that on the iPad, specifically if they update it for the iPad interface, or again taking advantage of the screen real estate,
Yeah.
because it's very ingenious. And it's funny. I was listening to Buzz Out Loud this week. Listen to Molly talking about what's that other browser, that the bitchy browser company.
Opera?
Yeah, Opera.
Yeah,
Oh,
Opera.
nobody's using our browser. Anyway, uh, apparently they made a statement saying that they have built one for the iPhone and that they plan on releasing it to the App Store. And for some reason, the people, the Buzz crew on Buzz Out Loud, seem to think that there's no way that Apple would let them submit it, or that they would deny it. And the funny thing was, I wanted to call the Buzz Out Loud number, but I've called it many times in the past, and they never play my voicemail, so I didn't bother. But I'm sitting there going, guys, Perfect Browser's already out there and already in the App Store, and it is a browser. Yes, it does duplicate functionality of Safari, but it does a better job than Safari. I think it
Yeah.
does. It's very cool. So I look forward to checking that out on the iPad, and kudos to the guys at Perfect Browser. I hope you guys come out with an updated version that takes advantage of the iPad screen real estate.
The browser, the Safari built-in browser for the iPad looks pretty good, so I'll be interested to see what third-party developers will do. I've heard you'll be able to download files from within Safari now in the new version and all sorts of more advanced stuff. And it's going to look a lot more like a desktop browser as far as you'll be able to see the bookmarks at the top, and stuff like that go on a pull-down menu.
Yeah, because you got the screen real estate. But I'll tell you what I'd like to see, Tim. I would like to see Apple open up the API to Safari like they did.
Plugins.
Right, plugins. I would love to see plug-in availability for Safari on the iPhone and the iPad. I mean, they have it for the Mac. Once again, it's Apple being all freaky about, oh, we don't want people crashing this thing. Well, hello, Apple. Safari still crashes on me once a week.
Yeah, and if they went through approval process like they do with the App Store, I I would love to have an Evernote or 1Password plugin for Safari. The next app that I'm most excited about is WritePad. Now, if you haven't heard of WritePad, what it does is it interprets your finger gestures to turn it into a text, basically. And I was looking for this when I started to use the Newton, and I discovered text recognition has gone a long way. And back in 1997, they did it really well with the Newton, and it interprets all my things really well and really great. And when I saw the iPad was going to be released, I was wondering, hey, is there an iPhone app that'll do a similar functionality? So that's the one that I'm going to be very excited to try out on the iPad, because on the iPhone, the screen's way too small to use that for any extensive period of time. Now, in an iPad, you can bring that to a meeting and just start writing on the screen. And I'll probably pair that with the Pogo stylus or something like that. And I'm excited to finally find a solution to the Newton as your digital notebook, where you're just able to write notes down as you're in meetings and whatnot. So that's kind of my second pick.
What's that called again?
It's called WritePad.
WritePad. Okay, WRITE. WritePad.
Yeah.
Yep, there it is. WritePad. $199 in the App Store. It gets 2.5 stars right now after 188 ratings.
And I'm not sure where those. I've had great experience with it personally. Just I'm not sure if they're not doing a good job at writing at all, because I can put down a really mess of a scribble, because you're using your finger on a small screen. It doesn't turn out well as far as what you actually put in there,
Mm-hmm.
but it interprets that incredibly well. I'm kind of surprised it's got a low rating.
Well, I was listening to some of the other podcasts, and it tends to be, and I kind of agree with these people that you can't really go by the App Store ratings because people game the system, or you get one guy that goes off on the company and keeps logging one. They use multiple accounts, keep giving the app 1 star because they're ticked off about something. So,
Right.
Speaking of iPad, I haven't heard of that, so I will check that out. But I had found not that this is a pick, but I thought I'd try it. Was Dan Bricklin's Dan Bricklin? I'm cheating. I'm typing it into my iPhone here. Of course, it's not coming up. But it was Dan Bricklin's text jot or something, and it does not do handwriting recognition, but it allows you to take notes in your own handwriting.
Okay, as like images then?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
So I played around with that, but it would definitely be neater to have handwriting recognition. So your experience is, it converts or detects what you're trying to write pretty well, huh?
Yeah, it works great with my finger, and I've got a stylus, and it works great. The only problem is the iPhone, it's way too small. That's why I got a Newton, because the screen's a bunch larger, and it's designed to do just that. And with the iPad coming out, the screen's even larger than the Newton, so I could only see this as being a good thing. The only problem I could eventually see with it is your hand being, physically on the screen, your lower portion of your hand here, and it'll detect that. So I'm kind of wondering if there will be any dock-connected stylus that'll work with some apps that'll kind of fix that.
I don't know. That'd be interesting. We'll have to see. So you gonna get a Pogo?
I'm definitely going to get a Pogo stylus. I've got another one which is made by a different company, and it just wasn't built that well. You have to really press down really hard to get any sort of sensing out of it, and just a bad experience overall with it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I haven't messed with any of those since my Palm days.
Yeah, I use the Newton still in class and everything to this day. It's a great little device for just a digital notebook, and it'll be nice just to replace that with an iPad.
Don't you get strange looks?
I do. They ask me, it's like, what is this, device that has an Apple symbol on it that looks really ugly and kind of old? And I tell them it's
and it's like army green.
Yeah, the army green, and I tell them it's over a decade old. It's the Apple Newton, the first tablet. If you want to call it that, the first PDA.
Was it? I guess it was. I can't really think beyond that.
Yeah, they kind of invented the PDA market, and then Palm followed and was more successful with that.
Yeah, I remember when the first Palm came out. I jumped on board with that and developed for it.
Yeah. What's your next pick?
My next pick would have to be a game. Right now, I'm really into playing, I believe it's called Space Miner.
Okay.
It's kind of like Asteroids. Yeah, it's called Space Miner. And I'm on my second time playing it through. And what's neat is, although it's kind of the same game the second time through, well, it is the same game the second time through, some of the extras are things that you pick up, like this alien technology for your spaceship, you get to keep for your second time through. So it's basically a take on the old Asteroids game, but the graphics are amazing. It has a storyline. Sadly, the storyline doesn't change the second time through. It's the same storyline.
Yeah, some games do that. Those are nice.
But they do increase, how hard it gets. And, you're basically mining these asteroids. You blow them up, and you collect the debris that it creates, and you haul that back to Gritstone Mindstone Incorporated and cash that stuff in, and you can use that cash to upgrade your weapons, your ship, your hauling capacity, and all kinds of stuff. And I've just really enjoyed it. So a game like that would look pretty cool on the iPad. Now, there are a lot of other cool games out there. I really like Angry Birds, although that plays just fine on the iPhone. it'd be kind of interesting to play that on the iPad. But
Yeah,
something like an Asteroids with great graphics and all these things coming in different directions and would be really neat. Now, I know a
sure.
lot of people have been talking about Plants vs. Zombies and some of this other stuff that's out, and I have yet to try any of those out. What about you?
Sure. Well, just one second. We've got a caller in now. Are you here, John?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep. Coming in nice and clear.
Great.
So, what are your thoughts on the iPad as far as applications? What are you looking forward to?
I think it's really going to be great for productivity applications.
Yeah.
Sure. Are you Omni Group? Are you looking at, or iWork, or?
Both of those, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Are you
Yeah.
using one in particular now? Do you have an iPhone?
I do use iWork right now, and I do have an iPhone. I use a number of applications on the iPhone.
Like what?
A lot of specific single-purpose kind of applications.
Okay.
Tim, you mentioned WritePad. I've used that. That's kind of nice, except just too small a screen.
Yeah, exactly. What are you going to be using the iPad for once you get it? Are you buying one day one? Or are you going to wait to play with it a little bit, or?
I am buying one day one. Myself and my partners have a iPhone development company, and we're going to be developing apps. We're currently developing an app for the iPad.
Cool.
Awesome. Are you able to tell us what it's about, or is that still?
It's probably can't get into details, but it's a game.
Oh,
But,
cool.
Have you guys discovered any unusual differences with interface as far as iPad gaming versus iPhone gaming yet?
The larger screen obviously makes a lot of possibilities that the iPhone doesn't have, and there'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And the larger screen allows you to more than one person to use the game at one time.
Yeah, I saw it's called. I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but I saw an application that's being developed, which is basically just a board that you can put checker pieces on, chess, or a wide variety of other pieces, and there's no predefined movements like you would have in a Monopoly type game for the iPhone right now, where it moves for you. Instead, you just move pieces around and make up your own rules, and that's really interesting because you can just lay it down and it's just a regular board game, sort of.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of possibilities of board games for the iPad.
Yeah, I'm excited for what Axis and Allies is going to be. Just those kind of games, where you just have a bunch of people crowded around and they can all interact with it.
Hey, John.
Right?
I'm
Sure.
sorry. I just had a question on, since you're developing for the iPad, and I don't know how much you can talk about this, but what is your experience with trying to design controls for your game? Now, we don't know what you're making, versus on the iPad versus the iPhone. I mean, is the iPad almost too big to kind of have your thumbs on it kind of thing? Do you have
Well,
any?
obviously, none of us, at least none of the developers I know, have actually touched a real one.
Yeah,
we have
good
some
point.
mock-ups, but the particular game that we're doing is made for multiple people to get their hand on the iPad, so it doesn't really have that issue about
Okay.
reach across the screen.
Okay.
I can mention, though, that one of the things we're exploring is something that Tim mentioned in one of the previous podcasts, and that was using iPhones as kind of satellite to the main iPad.
Oh, cool.
Are you guys using Bluetooth, or how are you interacting between the two devices to do that?
Yeah, there's a well-known in the iPhone development world is a set of calls called GameKit, which uses Bluetooth to make those things happen.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm very excited to see when Scrabble will make their iPad version where each iPhone has the pieces and you just flick them across onto the board and move it around. That's going to be exciting.
That's cool. Oh my gosh! So we have to buy an iPad and like 4 or 5 iPhones.
Or iPod touches. These things will sell iPod touches, I think, once people start using them.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. So, do you have anything else, John, that you're really looking forward to? Now, since you're well, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Let me start with you're going with getting one on day one. You said. Does that mean you're going Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I'm going Wi-Fi initially. I will probably buy a 3G when they're available, but I really need one for development right away.
Yeah, me too. That's why I'm getting one.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, you were going to tell us something.
Well, it's interesting that Tim's mentioned that he's a Newton user. I'm an old Newton user. In fact, I still have my message pad 2100 that I occasionally pull out and try to do something with. So I'm actually looking at how to replicate some of the things that I've done with the Newton on the iPad. So we're looking at some of applications that could revitalize some of the functionality of the Newton.
I'm still part of the Newton Talk mailing list, and they're having this big discussion on, is the iPad a Newton replacement? And I think if you're able to develop this, John, and actually make the same functionality on the iPad through applications, it could be a big hit. I mean, there's a lot of Newton users that are wanting that solution for the iPad.
Yeah, and in some ways, the iPad may or may not be too big for Newton users. They've gotten used to that particular size, although the Newton itself was, I think, a little small. So I'm looking forward to the size of the iPad. I think it'll be a killer size.
Hey, John, I was going to ask if you are able to tell us the name of your development company so that the listeners could look for your name in the App Store. Or you could just come back and tell us when you're ready.
Sure, I could tell you. It's Jindianzi and you can reach it at jindianzi.biz. We currently have one app in the App Store for the iPhone and a couple of others that are about to be submitted.
Okay. And how's the submittal process going for you? I mean, we were hearing rumors that it was taking forever. So
well, there was a slowdown late last year. I think they were just trying to adjust to the number of submissions that they were getting.
No, okay.
Our initial one took a few weeks, but since then our updates have gone through pretty quickly. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Okay, cool. Tim, I'm not sure. You'll have to check with John. You may have to cut that out because that may be against what he's allowed to tell us.
I think that should be fine. I mean, people are reporting on how fast it's taken. I've submitted some podcast applications, and once they're submitted to Apple, I work with Buzzard Media for that, and they're in the App Store within 24 hours. So they're getting quicker, and that's a good thing.
Well, wow, John, that sounds cool. It sounds like you guys are anxiously awaiting. Now, you got a couple partners there. Have you all ordered iPads?
Yeah, actually, we all have.
So you guys will be able to look at doing some interaction between iPads themselves, not just iPod touches and iPhone.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool.
So besides those apps you're talking about, are there any other apps that you're excited to start developing or see others develop for the iPad?
Yeah, there's actually one app that I've been working on for a while for the iPhone, and it's been a challenge. It's kind of a to-do task management kind of application, and the iPad is going to really allow me to do some of the things that I really wanted to do with it. So,
be trying to compete with OmniFocus and the big to-do apps. What are you working on? Anything particularly different from those guys?
Yeah, we have a little bit of a different secret sauce, if you will, on our take on it. So it's a little unique and will appeal to a certain audience.
Awesome. I'm excited to try that out when that comes out, to let us know.
Yeah. So,
Ryan, do you have any other picks that you haven't talked about that you want to talk about tonight?
I had it on mute. Sorry. Let's see. What else have I been playing with a lot on here? Actually, I have to confess, I have been, not that this is going to be any different on an iPad, other than being able to see more. But I've been messing around with a lot of these app suggestion utilities, trying to find another way to get app ideas, not necessarily for building, but for trying out, and just finding out what's out there, because there's so many out there, and the App Store is so crowded, and you only see the top 100 unless you go digging, and the reviews are kind of People seem to game the review system, as I said earlier. So let me rattle off a few here that I've been checking out. These are all free. You can find them in the App Store. There's Appalicious. They have a website and an application, and they show, people voting on applications that they're interested in. AppV, which is one. And AppV is more, AppV themselves say, hey, here are the applications that we're reviewing right now. Position App just came out recently, and it's a different take. But Position App basically shows what the current position is from number 1 to 200 or whatever of any particular application. So you can pop it up and see what's hot right now and see if it's a game that you haven't recognized, but pretty much you are. So that doesn't really help. But so far, my favorite one has been Chomp, CHOMP. They have a website that you can go to, and it just explains it, but you don't do much there like you do with some of the other ones like Fresh Apps. And I mean, there's a ton of these sites. But Chomp is pretty much all iPhone app driven. And it's really neat because you can go in there and see a live feed of people voting on apps. It's not a 5-star system. It's either a heart or no heart. You either like it or you don't like it. And then you can put like a Twitter style comment in, like nothing more than 100 and something characters. And what's cool about it is you can see the live feed, and it shows you as soon as you post a review, it shows up in the live feed. The other neat thing is you can click on any one of those, get the info for it, see the screenshots, see how many people have voted I like it, how many people voted I don't like it. You can follow somebody if you want. If you really like everything that they're voting on, you can follow them and see all the stuff they're voting for. And the coolest feature of all is it's got a bookmark, which I think a couple of them do. But if I find an app that I'm interested in, I could click Get It Now, and it'll take me to the App Store to be able to download it. But what I'll do is I'll just go through a list of them, and I'll hit Bookmark, and it saves that for me. And then I can come back later when I got time and go through my bookmarks and go, yeah, I really don't want that one, remove it from my bookmarks, or continue looking at it. So not that that's a great iPad possibility, but it will be something I use on the iPad because I use Chomp on the iPhone all the time.
Mm-hmm. Sure. John, do you have any other productivity apps that you've found besides iWork and Omni Group that when that comes to the iPad that you'll see as a great benefit?
I haven't really seen anybody that's announced that they're going to be out there very early. But there are a number of productivity apps. I kind of have a hobby of writing, and there's a number of writing applications that are talking about bringing out something for the iPad, but I'm not sure how long it'll be until they get those out.
Sure.
I might mention to Ryan that it's very difficult to find apps in the App Store, and appshopper.com is probably a good place to go to search for apps.
Yeah, appshopper.com is another one. That's right. And there's a search engine kind of modeled after Google that is doing that. What is that? I think it's called iQuery.com.
One of the apps that I don't use a whole bunch on the iPhone, but I thought when the iPad comes out, this is going to be pretty cool. The Louvre has a museum app that has a bunch of their artwork, and I think an optimized version for the iPad is just going to be incredible because you'll have almost full-size artwork pieces there on the iPhone for your viewing that you can just have just laying around your desk or whatever.
Hey, John, does App Shopper have an iPhone app? John?
I don't know if it does.
Okay.
I always use it through a browser.
Okay. Yeah, I just pulled it up. It's a nice looking site. I'll have to check that out, see if there's one for the iPhone. Well, besides writing apps for it, John, and the productivity thing, is there any one thing that really stands out for you that you use every day on your iPhone besides productivity?
Not really.
Okay.
The interesting thing about the iPad, though, should be that you can now really more fully use the browser. I don't know if you folks are familiar with anything relating to Tiddlywiki,
No,
but
I haven't heard of that before.
I'm sure you're familiar with what a wiki is, where you
Yep.
can have a page and you can add to it. Well, Tiddlywiki is the way where you have a lot of embedded JavaScript, and you can run this wiki yourself. It's just a single HTML page that you can store on your own machine. You can bring it up and you can take notes and things like that in it. And there's a lot of different flavors of this. The one that I'm using is kind of geared toward GDT, getting things done,
Okay.
and so the problem is that you can't currently run it on the iPhone. I thought perhaps it would be good. I could move it from my Mac to the iPhone and even to a PC, but the iPhone doesn't write out this file, and so the iPad is supposed to be able to do that kind of thing, and that opens up a lot of possibilities.
Well, I had a question. I was wondering with the iPad, I was wondering with the mobile sites, is the iPad going to treat Facebook.com like the mobile version or the regular version? Does anyone know?
That's a good question. It may be dependent upon what Facebook.com wants to consider the iPad when it comes in and identifies itself as an iPad. So I think you may see different sites take it differently, but typically you can turn those things off of their mobile. You can go to the real site.
Yeah, which I find I do a lot.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, could there be a third type of site that people design now? Because I heard from some, like Time Magazine, I wasn't sure if that was Time but someone was saying they're developing an iPad special version of the site. I'm not sure if there'll be a third now category of websites that developers have to make.
Well, it's kind of interesting. It'll depend upon how this whole thing goes with the iPad and the iPhone and no Flash, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what they're doing is places that typically have developed Flash sites are now looking at the potential of developing HTML5 sites, and those can be very utilized even on a regular desktop. So it may not be a third category. It might just be that we'll see Flash being used less and less.
Sure.
Or maybe instead of by default getting a Flash site, you have to request it. I don't know if either you remember, but when Flash was still new, you sometimes would go to a site and see two buttons to continue. One was a Flash site, and one was a regular site, and it was primarily because the Flash was graphics heavy, and a lot of people didn't have very quick connections.
Yeah, I remember those days.
I still use Click to Flash I disable all my Flash unless I absolutely want it or need it, because it always slows down my browser and just is a pain.
Yeah, it's definitely a problem when you're running a Mac.
Well, John, I think one of the things that Tim, and correct me if I'm wrong, is as far as the browser goes and designing a website specifically for the iPhone and for everybody else using a computer, is that there's some very neat things in the kit. What is that kit? The web kit? Kit. That in Safari, so you could do some of these cool transitions and corners and stuff that IE just bombs on or just doesn't get. Microsoft just doesn't get it. And it's such a pain trying to design sites that fit everybody perfectly. But if you're designing something specifically for the iPhone, and like this new one that came out, John, for WordPress, I do like that interface, that WordPress iPhone interface. I'm sure something like that, or UI, what is it, IUI from, what was that guy's name, Joe? I'm sure those type of web applications will be able to just scale their buttons and screens when it knows it's an iPad and still function the same way. So hopefully you only have to tweak your code instead of writing a whole new web-based code. You know what I mean?
And one really cool thing I actually downloaded and started playing with is there's a way in Safari to build a native app per se for the iPhone through Safari. There's an app called Voice Central by Black Swan. It's covered on TWA or the unofficial Apple weblog, but it's a Google Voice app that you go to their website and you actually download an application to your iPhone. It's not a favicon icon that just opens up Safari. It opens up its own app outside of Safari that is simply a Google Voice client that works really well. It's impressive because it's not even using Safari. I'm not sure how it works.
And this is on the iPhone?
Yeah, it's by Black Swan.
Black Swan.
And it's called Voice Central. And looking up here on Black Swan's website, they've got a frequently asked questions area, and they say that this application, which they call a web location, a new breed of applications that bypasses the App Store, utilizes HTML5, JavaScript, a client-side database, and a middleware layer powered by Google App Engine. The application communicates primarily with Google Voice through Riverturn's Google Voice middleware. Communication is encrypted with SSL from the iPhone to Google Voice and everywhere in between. When you use the application, it instructs the middleware to fetch your information from Google Voice and stores it in the local database on your iPhone. So it's pretty cool. They're doing some very advanced things with what you can do with WebKit and all these extra features like HTML5, JavaScript, databases, and this middleware layer thing. And they describe the middleware as why you do this instead of going directly to Google Voice. And through browser security limitations, through that, they do not allow for cross-domain scripting. Since Voice Central Black Swan is hosted on a different domain than Google Voice, it can't communicate with Google Voice directly. The cross-domain scripting is considered a security risk that all browsers prevent. Now, some of you say, savvy users are saying there are ways around this, and surely there are, but we have found none as elegant as our middleware. An additional benefit here is that since the middleware does most of the data parsing, the response time of the application over any connection, including Edge, is much faster. The important thing to note here is that your Google Voice data is never stored by the middleware, so we do not hold on to your information beyond your use of the application. It's just a proxy between the iPhone and Google Voice. So that's a little bit on this application that they're calling a web location that is nearly a native Google Voice client for your iPhone. And this is cool because the possibilities are going to be opening up for the iPad as developers see tricks that they can do with Safari and WebKit and how they can do that for the iPhone. I mean, the iPad.
Can I go back for 1 minute, John? Is Tiddlywinky spelled the same way as Tiddlywinks?
Well, I'm not sure how tiddlywinks are spelled, but it's Tiddlywiki.
Okay, no, then it's spelled differently.
If March Madness was in April, the March Madness people who make that app would be making a lot more money, because I didn't buy the March Madness app because it was for the iPhone, but I can see next year streaming live basketball games to your iPad will be just incredible as a selling point for that app.
Yeah, that would John, did you hear the one my first one that I talked about was the Air Video app?
No, I missed that.
The Air Video app is $2.99. The server side is free. You can put the server on any of your PCs or server, and it will live stream whatever you throw in the directory. Pretty much any video format, it will convert it on the fly and send it to your iPhone, and the quality is amazing. So I was telling everybody, I really look forward to that on the iPad.
Sounds great.
Are there any apps that you guys are anticipating using besides the ones we've talked about so far?
A ton. Like I said, we can go over more next week too, because I'm an app junkie.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm actually going to develop anything because I spend so much time downloading apps and playing with them. But I have a ton that I could go through. So we will save some for a future show.
Yeah, I thought a nightstand would be incredible. You can now do a analog clock, the old school clock, instead of the numbers because you have the screen size, so it'd actually be practical to do it that way.
Oh, okay, cool.
That was just a little. Oh, sorry. We're gonna say, John.
You've mentioned in the past a VNC client. I'm anticipating will be very, very cool. Mm-hmm. One thing I'm considering, and I think this goes back to your last episode on the iPhone or the iPad as a display, is I'm kind of interested in seeing how you can use it to do research or reference material right next to your MacBook, and
right.
use the power of the fact that you have a computer chip in there, and just have it somehow work really seamlessly between the two. So it's similar to an external monitor, but you also have the touch interface and you have other capabilities that you can use it for.
Yeah, and even some applications, you're able to copy and paste between iPhone and a Mac, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That'll become even more useful with an iPad because I could see myself having my Mac Mini set up with its monitor, and then I have my my iPad next to it, where I've got, say, if I'm a developer, I have my coding, whatever resources next to me, and I'm able to copy and paste different things over and.
Right. I don't know if how you guys think about this, but a lot of times I'll find myself in the middle of whatever it is, coding or doing a spreadsheet or something, and I need to look up something on Google or something like that. But if it's a big download that I'm getting or something, why should I be tying up my machine that I need to work on? Mm-hmm. If I could look it up on the iPad and have it download, maybe have it download to a shared drive, so then I get it right on the Mac. That would be a killer thing. So use the processing power that it has, as opposed to just treating it as a monitor.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool if you'd actually use. I'm not sure how Xgrid works, but using Xgrid and a bunch of iPads, and I don't know how that would all work together, but basically using the processor power for your Mac from your iPad.
Yeah. Be interesting.
The next question I had is, what apps are incredible for the iPhone that will be just terrible for the iPad? What makes the iPhone apps different now, as far as which ones will be more useful?
Any
application that deals with making a phone call.
Very true.
Well, it's really a form factor, right? I mean, other than making a phone call, it's a form factor thing. So anything that you want to have in your pocket, you're not gonna, unless you get some really big pants, you're not gonna have it with the iPad.
Yeah, Tim.
Obviously, anything with a camera is not going to be there, right? At least initially.
Right.
Yeah.
Camera. Yeah. I can't wait when I'm at work. I know, to say, you daggone Apple fanboy, you had to be the first one to get one. I can't wait to lift that iPad to my side of my head and say hello.
Open up Skype and there
I'll
you
be
go.
Like, hello, yes.
Another thing that we're going to miss is, with at least the Wi-Fi model, is GPS.
Right.
Our application, which is called "It's on My Way," uses GPS, and it's we know it will work, and it'll probably look fairly decent as is, but the first models are just not going to locate themselves very well, and we have to wait for the 3G to really test that functionality out.
Yeah, that's one of the perks with the 3G model. And another thing, those that are using it with a MiFi, I'm not sure if Verizon's MiFi has a GPS built in, but I know the one I have that works with AT&T and European telecoms, it actually has a GPS built in, so I'm able to, with my original iPhone, get very, very precise location information. It's not enough for TomTom because it's not instant as far as all that, but it works really well as far as getting your location down.
Well, let me bring up a couple things, guys. You bring up a good point. One, I listened to a couple other shows this week, and a couple of people, or did I read this somewhere that, no, I think I read it somewhere that they said it's official, the TomTom in-car kit will work with the iPad, which I'm not quite sure how that is.
You have to mount it some really creative, awesome way. I mean, if you get rid of your CD player and put an iPad in there or something like that.
Right. Well, and I also saw that who is it, Kingston or someone else has a nice iPhone car kit that has a GPS extender on it. So my question is, these will extend. Will these give GPS functionality to the Wi-Fi version? And my second question is, if you have a 3G version but you don't have the data plan, will the GPS still work?
Sure. I have some answers to these. As I've used my iPhone 3G, I've actually taken out the SIM card to just kind of test that out and use it with just Wi-Fi for just, testing out, see how that would work. Mm-hmm. And the GPS does work without the SIM card in there. It works just as well as it does with the SIM card installed. So you can very easily have GPS without any monthly bill to AT&T. Especially if the SIM card's inside of there, it'll definitely work. And even with it outside of it, it works too. When the SIM card's when it's not inside of the device, it takes longer to acquire the data, the location, because it doesn't have the cell towers to work off of, but it still works.
Okay. Yeah, so it's got to acquire a single signal from the GPS.
Yeah. And Ryan, as far as those other kits, if they work with the iPod Touch,
right,
and they don't have a physical problem with connecting to the iPad, then I think they would probably work.
Yeah, good point. Wi-Fi. No, I think you're right. Yeah, you're right. iPod Touch, if the iPod Touch works with those, sure. Okay, cool.
Well, the next question is, what location apps would be useful on the iPad? The one I mentioned earlier was Evernote, and that's going to be extremely useful because I'll have location information for all the notes I take now. But what other apps most of the location apps are those that you stick in your pocket and are taken around all the time, but what other apps would benefit from location information?
Oh, one of my favorites is the Gorilla Grip, the Gorilla Cam. Oh, wait a minute. I don't have a camera in my iPad. Shoot. But that was a geolocation tagging.
Yeah, geotagging with maybe with the camera kit to connect and get your pictures, or any kind of travel blog, right?
Right.
And if you're traveling around with it and doing a blog or a journal or something like that, having geolocation would be useful. I know. Unfortunately, my last trip that I took last summer, I wasn't going to be using the phone, and I turned off the phone and consequently turned off the GPS chip too. So I got a bunch of blog entries that don't have any GPS information in it.
My next question is, what kind of accessories are you planning on getting, John, for the iPad?
I picked up one of the Bluetooth keyboards, Apple Bluetooth keyboards. It was kind of interesting. Since I knew that any Bluetooth keyboard should really work, I started looking around, and there aren't many small ones.
Right.
And for the price, Apple's is pretty good. So I'm kind of looking forward to using that. And I think I'm going to have the regular dock,
mm-hmm.
and if not the Apple case, if I can't get a hold of one of those, I'll get a case from somebody. But I'm sure I want a case with it.
Yeah, my case is said to ship April 15th and deliver by April 20th. So that should be just around the same time I get my 3G iPad. So that should be perfect for me, at least.
Yeah. I also want to try the Pogo stylus that you've mentioned, that I know Andy Nako also mentioned, and it looks like it will be a killer thing, and maybe with WritePad and maybe some other apps, it could actually come close to a Newton, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. One thing you might want to look into, John, as far as if you want to transport the keyboard, Waterfield Designs makes a wide variety of cases, and they actually make an Apple wireless keyboard case, which I have. It's pretty handy.
I'll look into that.
So any other final thoughts before we close out this week's show?
2 more weeks.
2 more weeks and about a month for me, unfortunately.
Hey, John, while we have you on here, and you said you're doing getting Wi-Fi for development, so you don't have to wait so long.
Right.
Did you pre-order or did you reserve?
I reserved. One of my partners pre-ordered. I was going to pre-order, but there were some other factors that made me think that I'd rather get there and get in the store and grab it. So hopefully I won't have any problems with that.
Yeah, hopefully you won't be detained between 9 and 3, or you could lose it. I went ahead and pre-ordered, so mine should be shipped to me. And I checked, I do have FedEx Saturday delivery. So,
yeah, I was kind of surprised that they didn't actually let you, or actually take payments for pre-orders. I would have expected they would have done that.
You mean for the reserve?
For the reservations,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you could just walk in and pick it up, really. Yeah,
right.
I'm surprised they didn't either.
I mean, previously they had the ability to pre-order and pick it up at the store, and that's kind of what I wanted to do, but.
Now, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you listen to a lot of the same podcasts I do. Do you think there's going to be a line?
I am expecting, I'm in Phoenix, and I'm expecting maybe a short line at some of the stores here. But my other partner and I are planning on being there. So if the line starts forming, we'll figure out how to get a place in that line pretty early.
Okay, well... So. What Tim? I think we should ask John. Sounds like he's got a great connection, great voice. If he can join us on April 4th, on the April 4th live show, and
that'd be fantastic.
That way, we would have my feedback from getting it pre-ordered via FedEx, and making sure that none of my neighbors jumping on the way to my door.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'll be. I won't be buying an iPad April 3rd, but I'll be going to the Indianapolis store and doing some interviews and getting people's reactions there.
And drooling. Do not take your credit card with you, because you'll be like, "Oh, you have extra ones? Well, let's see."
I might as well. I've got a show to do.
So it would be great, John, if we get you back on April 4th and hear your reactions.
Absolutely.
From standing in line going to the Apple Store. I, too, have lucky enough to have an Apple Store right down the street from me in Kenwood Mall. But I decided after waiting in line the first time for the iPhone that I'll just have it delivered to me. What about you, Tim? You guys got an Apple Store out there?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 20 minutes from where I live. Yeah. It's the Keystone Mall.
Okay.
And, yeah, I've been there. They know me pretty well from just Genius Farm appointments and being there a lot for.
Well, John being in Phoenix, he's probably got like 4 of them.
Yeah, we do have quite a few.
I got some friends that live out there. That's Phoenix, Phoenix is really more than Phoenix, right? I mean,
it's
all
the
those
Valley of the Sun.
All those towns around you kind of just all merge together.
Definitely.
Oh, wow. All right, guys. Well, we're 1 week closer, and, I think some of what we're hearing on the news, the blogs, and other podcasts, there are people getting sick of hearing about it, but there's people like us who are getting a little wound up. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. I will talk to you guys next week.
Sounds good.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks, John.
Well, that concludes this episode of the iPad Possibilities podcast. And as always, if you want to find more information about this podcast, you can find that information on thepossibilitiesnetwork.com. It's an entire network of shows devoted to possibilities and potential. And if you'd like to support this show, you can do that in one of 4 different ways. First way is simply leave a review on iTunes. I love all the feedback I get on there. And also simply leave a voicemail message. We have a voicemail line always open at 209-542-iPad. That's 209-542-4723 for those without the alphabetical keyboard there. And you can also email us at iPadPossibilities@gmail.com. And I'd love to have all that feedback. It really helps me going forward as far as what to talk about and what you guys are interested in. And also, it would get us some more content for some of the voicemails if you're able to leave your opinions on applications and, as we discussed earlier, what you're going to be doing with an iPad when you get it. So just leave that kind of feedback and we'll be able to play that back on the show in future episodes. And if you want to financially support the show, you can do that by purchasing the iPad Possibilities podcast app. It's found in the App Store for $2.99. And the biggest perk about that app is you get it 24 hours in advance, all the episodes. So you get the shows on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday now instead of Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So you'll get those shows 24 hours in advance with that. And you can also donate to the show through the website. And I'd just like to remind everybody that if you'd like to join us on the live conversation, as John did this week, you can join us every Sunday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For some more information on that, just go to thepossibilitiesnetwork.com. And I'd like to thank John and Ryan for being on this week's show. So this is the iPad Possibilities Podcast. Until next week, this is Tim Chatton and Ryan Anderson.
Thanks, guys.